man, that's tasty. I haven't had one of those in a while.
Which kind?
Benders.
The Benders. Oh, those are good.
I want to get Fulton because of my St. John's buddies. But
Right. I've been looking forward to this one. Jim Souhan on SOUHAN-UNFILTERED.com. My guest tonight at the Devil's Advocate Bar in Minneapolis is Tom Linnemann.
Hello.
You might know him from his Twitter handle, John Sharkman. Oh, I just gave out the secret.
Uh-oh.
What did
Now
I do?
everybody knows.
Oh, what did I do? You know, you have to clarify something for me before we get rolling here.
Yeah.
This is, by the way, this is the Alive and Social Network. Mm-hmm. We are following the Jeff Dubay show at Devil's Advocate Bar. And again, you can find all of my podcasts at SOUHAN-UNFILTERED.com. Wednesday night this week, which is December 17th, 5 o'clock at the local. Roy Smalley and I will be talking baseball for an hour. And we'll also do something the week of Christmas at Kieran's. We will give you updates on that later. And I'm doing a bunch of podcasts. We've had Craig Leopold, Glenn Perkins, Paul Molitor, lots of cool people. But Tom Linnemann, the podcasts were like made for you.
You think so?
Made for you. Because we could go in any direction here. We could end up in Vietnam.
I have.
And you have.
I have some weird stories.
We could end up drinking with Craig Finn. We could end up in a green room with Bill Murray.
Yeah.
We could end up a lot of different places. But right now, I'm sitting next to a guy with a very colorful tattoo on his right biceps. And you still got the football muscles, by the way.
Thank you.
And then you got the Tupac T-shirt with the raised middle fingers. That does raise the question. Are we boys or are we dogs? And do either of those words have Z's in them?
I think dogs does not.
Okay.
Boys does.
Boys? Okay, we're boys then.
We can be boys. Yeah, this is sort of my general aesthetic, is a Tupac T-shirt with a sport coat over top of it usually. I like to mix.
Now, is that what you wore to your meetings at the big red circle today?
No, today I actually wore a Hammermaid shirt. A friend of mine,
nice.
Jason over there, makes like the greatest clothes ever. So I was
well, you know what?
I was professional today.
I think we're talking about them sponsoring this show, so why don't you give Jason a call and scoot things along?
I'm having dinner with them tomorrow.
Put in a good word, please.
I will.
Right now, Local and Kieran's are sponsoring the show. We're talking to a bunch of other people. I want to get to your travels. I want to get to your nightlife because I think that's probably more interesting than sports talk in most regards. But let's do the mea culpa to start. You and I both loved Johnny Manziel in college.
Oh, my God.
We both loved what we saw from him in preseason. We both wanted him to play. Then he plays. He stinks up the joint. Did that panic you?
No, it did not panic me. If anything, what panicked me is all of the people, all of the get off my lawn crowd. You've ever seen the movie Gran Torino?
Yes.
Okay, so
it's the ultimate get off my lawn character.
It's a great Eastwood, brilliant.
Yes.
Columbia Heights guy. Like, I love that movie. And as I'm watching Twitter in the first half of the early games where Manziel was absolutely horrific, he made some bad throws. It was almost as if people had the drafts written already, waiting to hit send because they want to condemn this guy. Because for some reason, the get off my lawn, yell at clouds crowd cannot wait to stick it to him because he's cocky.
Mm-hmm.
But that's exactly why I like the guy. I mean, he's extremely talented. It was his first half of football. He threw 2 interceptions. Now, later on, it was very interesting that Teddy Bridgewater was playing pretty well. He throws 2 picks. There wasn't the same level of hate and vitriol cascading through the Twitter sphere. It's just really interesting how people want to have something happen so much that it's like they're waiting for it. It's one half. Like, who cares? It's not Johnny Manziel is not a failure because of one half of football.
And by the way, a further introduction here. Tom played quarterback at St. John's, won a national championship. Basically,
no, lost one.
Oh, I thought you won one.
No, I lost.
Lost one? Okay.
Lost one 10-7 on a field goal with 3 seconds left from some dick named Rodney Chinos that I think about every single day of my life.
I'm
it's
glad
the most
you've
miserable
gotten over
day.
it.
Miserable
Well,
day.
I apologize for screwing that up.
That's right.
But you ended up, what I love is that Austin Murphy, a Sports Illustrated writer, goes to Collegeville to do a story on John Gallardi and his program, and you end up being the star of the book.
Well, I don't know about the star of the book,
You're
but
the star of
it
the
was
book.
certainly quoted pretty heavily. It was pretty funny because the first day, here's this Sports Illustrated senior writer, right? And at that time, people still read magazines.
Sports Illustrated was a big deal back then.
like
it's really not now, but it was then.
Yeah, it was. And so you have this senior writer that's writing about stuff every single week, and here he shows up at your practice. And it's like, how do you act, right? You don't want to be weird, and you don't want to be like, oh, hey, Sports Illustrated guy. But you also don't want to be standoffish either, because the whole idea is it's about John.
Right.
And we love him so much, we want to, put him in the best light. And the comedy of the whole thing is the guy shows up late the first day.
Really?
And so I'm playing through it in my head, thinking, okay, how am I going to introduce myself to this guy? Because I'll probably be spending a lot of time with him.
Right.
And because part of telling John's story is, I don't want to say I was somewhat of a spokesman for John. Like whenever any of the TV stations or radios, whatever, I would come and talk about John. We have a very special relationship. I just talked to him on the phone a few weeks ago. But here he comes in late. And so practice is about to start. And I'm getting to the point, I don't like when people are late. It's like my one quirk. I just fucking hate it. And he comes in late. And I turn to him and I'm like, what, should we start practice later for you? I completely threw off everything I was planning on being cordial and nice, because you can't come in here to a Division III school. We're hanging out in this beautiful forest and come in late. That's not a good first impression. He made a better second impression, I guess.
Yeah. And he did enter. The book was great, and it was a blast. And I think he kind of got John. And I didn't get up to Collegeville as often as I would want have wanted. But
yeah.
The great thing is when I went up to St. John's, I talked to 8 other people who had done stories on John, and they all said, "Okay, he's going to do this. He's going to do this. He's going to do this," and he did all of them. Yeah. It was awesome. He goes, I said, do you have time to talk? Well, yeah, I guess I got a little time here. And he pulls you in his office, right? And he sits you down. And as you're asking questions about his record, then he goes, "Oh, well, since you asked about that," and he pull out a mimeograph sheet with like all of his records on it.
Yeah.
It's like, and just lay it down for you. Oh, just happened to have my winning percentage and where it ranks right here. Just happened to be right here. It was great. It was like watching a magician pull nickels out of his ear. Oh, by the way, just happened to have this behind your ear. It was beautiful.
Yeah, he was brilliant. My favorite, there's so many John Gallardi stories, and I have more love for him. He's been a mentor and a friend forever. But what he used to do, and this, speaking of the evergreen type of story, every year there'd be a time where someone didn't show some courage or something like that. It'd be in a film session or something like that, where someone would shy away from a hit, just be a general pussy about something. And so he would have an arrow, like a wooden arrow, like a freaking bow and arrow, and he would talk about how you have to face your fears and you have to go through things. And he would put the arrowhead right on his neck, and he would walk through the arrow. He'd put it against the wall, like this old man. He was like 75 or something then. He would walk. He would just say, "You just got to trust it. You got to." And this whole story and and it would break and it would snap in half, and everyone's fucking head would explode. Right? We're like, "What? I've seen this 3 years in a row. I still can't believe this happened." And every year you'd see it, and you're like, you see the freshmen terrified, right? Like he's gonna kill him. Like, the arrow's gonna kill. And it didn't. It would always snap. The wood would snap. Like he figured it out perfectly. I'm really glad they never upgraded the quality of the arrows. But it was such a good lesson, and so classic Gallardi inside, where he would give like media folks like yourself or writers, whatever. He would give them a version,
yes.
But really the inside version is so sweet and so thoughtful and caring. And it's those messages, like when people say, why'd you like playing for him so much? It's moments like that, where you look out. I saw the same damn thing 3 years in a row, and every time I'm like, wow, that's brilliant, right? That's how you lead a group of people. And in my job now, I refer to, it's almost like I do Gallardiisms all the time. Like he used to say, Nike came up with the phrase, "Just do it." And he's like, they stole that from me, except what I used to say is, "Just do it, God damn it." Things like that.
That's harder to fit on a T-shirt.
Right. It's just, it was absolutely fantastic. But Austin actually got a view, Austin Murphy got a view inside the program. I only had to talk my way out of one story that I didn't want in that book, because I knew that my special lady at the time, that would end that story. It was a pretty good one. It was at I'll tell you, because what the hell, this is a podcast.
Absolutely.
We were in
because the great thing about a podcast is people can hear it, but they aren't allowed to repeat it.
Yeah,
it's a rule. It's a
you
rule.
Can't say anything.
No, it's like Fight Club.
Don't tell anybody. No, this was so we were going to a club after a gentleman's type of place, and in Rice, Minnesota, this place King's Inn, right? And Austin's with us because he's always freaking with us, and he's got his little notepad, and you don't realize it anymore because he's hanging around you all the time, like you're at parties or whatever, and he's just there. You know, you stop realizing that it's weird that this middle-aged dude is following you around writing down notes. And we walk into King's, and I see the bouncer, and it's a guy I know from high school basketball or something. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? And I see the bartender, and he's like, I know from something else, like something completely unrelated. Like,
but that's your life.
Yeah,
everywhere you go, you walk in and you know 8 people.
Well, I know different. I like to have a collective, and then I run into one of the staff, and I know her, and I literally knew like the first 5 people we encountered, and he's just hammering on his notebook, like just writing, and I'm like, no, that's the only one. You can't tell, because that would have gotten in a lot of trouble. But everything else, it's weird when you see someone else's viewpoint of things you did, because it's not always how you remember it, and which is it's kind of a weird phenomenon.
Well, I've had that conversation with a lot of athletes I've covered, because especially back when I covered baseball, because there's so much downtime in baseball. You end up talking through everything, and the old days is different than these days. These days, huge media throng, new ballparks built with places for ball players to hide. It's very controlled now. Players tend to be good to deal with, but you don't get the inside view. You get the culture, the corporate view often. Back in the old days, I'd see these guys in bars, and then we'd talk about it the next day. And, I would say 10% of the time I was talking to ball players, it was on the record. The rest of the time was bullshit.
It's part of the job, wasn't it?
And giving me, they'd give me inside information. I'd give them tips. We'd come back. Torrey Hunter, back those days, Torrey Hunter would talk hitting with me an hour before the game. Like, what his approach is going to be that night. And he would take my advice. How scary is that? He would take my advice some nights. I'd say, Torrey, I can just tell you're leaning out over the plate too much, looking for that. You're so worried about the slider away, you're getting beat inside. Oh, man, you're right. I mean, that was the way it was back then with that group, because that was such a great group of guys. And, I told you I wanted to go on some tangents. Now I have to remember where I was before I went on the tangent. Oh, but I have heard that from athletes, that even when they read what they consider to be an accurate depiction of something that happened, it doesn't mean that it feels the way they felt about it.
It's true. And it's a really bizarre phenomenon. I actually didn't read the book for almost a year afterwards because I was afraid of that. Yeah. Like, I was afraid of the different version of it. It's an interesting point you bring up about downtime in baseball. Last year, you actually had Perkins on here.
Yeah, he was my first guest at the local 2 Wednesdays ago.
Yeah, he's he's
the best.
Glenn and I we're pals, which is a really interesting way that we became. Do you know how we became friends?
I kind of, but I think it would be a great topic. So go.
Yeah.
Go with it.
So he it was on Twitter, because I was myself on Twitter for a while, but I don't want to get in trouble. Every once in a while I like to live life a little bit, celebrate life. I don't want to live to be a very old person, so I'm going to do my best to get the most out of it now.
The James Dean line, die young, have a pretty corpse.
Yeah, or Ashley Montague, die young as late as possible. Like, that's like how I want to approach it. And so I was talking, I was, John Sharkman at the time. And
by the way, just a timely text from my significant other. Could you just ask Tom if I could please be his personal assistant when he wins his most interesting man in the world contest?
Well, that's not. Yes, certainly. Yeah. I'm looking for another personal assistant. The one I have sucks. I'm just kidding, Steven. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so like I was talking, we were sitting. It was like New Year's Day or something like that, and Perk was talking about, or I was talking about playing racquetball, because I was really into racquetball at that time for some reason. I like going into this little box and just sweating your ass off for a certain amount of time. And so I was talking about playing racquetball with somebody, and Perk's like, "I'll play racquetball again." It's like random, like just out of the blue. Like I don't.
It's so
we don't know each other. And I'm like, I will kick your ass in racquetball. Like, I will, 9 o'clock, Lifetime, downtown, I will beat your ass in racquetball. Like, so we're going back and forth on Twitter. He's like, no, you won't. So I go there at 9 o'clock, and he shows up. And I'm like, oh, hey, man. And so we play racquetball, and I don't remember if I won first or he won first, but the games were super. It's like two like caged animal competitive people, right? Two people like who, no matter who wins, the other person was going to break their racket. Like, it was going to be a new racket for someone, because we're both pretty competitive.
And two people with excellent hand-eye coordination and beer guts, which I really respect.
We have a solid pork trail. So we played, and it was awesome. It was super fun because it was competitive, and it went like 5 games or something like that. We should do this again because I think I won the first time, and he wanted a rematch, and he smoked me the second time, and after that you just sort of become friends with the guy, and he's a good dude. I think he's had such an interesting career here in Minnesota.
Well, when I had him on, he brought up that he, as you know, and as I've written about extensively, there was a time when he filed a grievance against the team. And the team, I know Gardenhire couldn't stand the sight of him. Rick Anderson couldn't stand the sight of him. Some people in the front office couldn't stand the sight of him. It was almost over for him here. Yeah. It was really close. And for him to go from there to them considering releasing him, I believe the spring of 2011, to being all-star closer and everyone's favorite guy. He's my favorite guy. He's your favorite guy. That's a remarkable turnaround, he's done it. The other thing I like about it, he's done it without kissing ass.
Yeah,
this isn't a PR campaign.
No, it's genuine.
He just kind of let people in a little bit.
Yeah, that's it. He let people in. He's like, people know now that he likes to barbecue and that he likes to drink surly beer and whatever. It's been interesting. Let it be known though, when Gardy had his 1000th win or whatever, the wooden piece that was put together was from Perkins' family, right? It was from his wife's dad. Yeah. So that shows you a lot about somebody. Yes. Is you can put all that behind you, and I was pretty, you're kind of proud of that because that's a cool thing to do. I have a great story. So we were I was in Fort Myers last year. So I was working on this. I work up in Toronto now, and I was working on these new store openings, and it was challenging work. And I talked to my wife, and she's like, you know what? You need a weekend to just get out of here. Like
I thought you got out of there every weekend.
Yeah, I did, but it's work stuff too. I work for like 15 hours, and then I party for like 8 hours, and then I have an hour to sleep. Yeah. Right? That's usually the plan. She's like, you know what? Why don't you take a weekend, go down to Fort Myers with Perkins, hang out.
She is wife of the year, by the way. Since I'm not married yet, I can say that.
Great.
She is wife of the year.
Yeah, it's not easy for sure. So I go down there, and I'm going to stay at his house, right? So I get there, and that night we're going to go to the Twins corporate dinner, like the whole whatever. They bring in a bunch of corporate sponsors and things like that. And Phil Hughes had just joined the team, and Perk and Phil had known each other a little bit and friends. So we said, okay, we're going to meet Phil at the hotel, and then we're going to take a boat over to this place because that's the badass thing that you do. You don't drive there because everybody drives there. I said, why the hell would you drive?
And by the way, Stacy used to work in Cape Coral. She knows some great hidden seafood restaurants that you need to take a boat to.
Yeah, that's the best ones.
I'll give you some restaurants.
You definitely should. So we're like, okay, we're gonna meet Phil. I don't know Phil at all, right? Seems like a nice enough guy. We got on this boat, and it's super badass. Like we're just like riding across the water. It's just the raddest way to enter.
Have you read any of the Randy Wayne White novels?
No.
Randy Wayne White, he isn't always my favorite, but he went through a streak of about 10, 12 novels. They're all set in Fort Myers, and they are kick-ass.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing is during the winter, you read them, and you smell the salt water. So Randy Wayne White, if you're ever in the middle of the winter dying for Fort Myers, and you like kind of an action-adventure novel, that's the guy.
Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah. So
sorry to interrupt.
You hire one of these characters, they're guys with boats.
Yep.
Right? They're these sort of
guides.
Interesting. Basically. Yeah, they're guides, whatever. Yeah,
they're whatever they need to be.
Yeah. So we go over to this hotel in Sanibel, and it's me and Perkins and Phil, and we're about to take the golf cart over to the dinner thing. So we get on the dinner thing. Dave St. Peter gets on, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Good." And he's like, "Who are you?" I'm like, "I'm Tom." And he turns to Perkins. He's like, "What? You signed a big contract? You can bring whoever you want." Perk's like, "Yeah, pretty much." So we go over to the dinner, and I walk in, and it's I first see Mike Herman, so the traveling
secretary now. He used to be the PR guy.
Great guy. So I walk in, he's like, "Oh, Sharkman, what's going on?" I'm like, "Hey, what's up, Herman? How you doing?" Like, "What's up?" And I see Dustin Morris, and Dustin's like, "No way, Sharkman!" And pretty soon St. Pete's like, "Who the hell is that?" And he comes over, he's like, "You didn't say you were John Sharkman." I'm like, "Yeah, well, that's not my fucking name, but And he's like, "Oh man, happy to have you. That's awesome. Thanks for coming."
That's
and I'm like,
beautiful.
it's perfect, right? So Dave St. Peter was so gracious and very sweet, like very thoughtful. Like I crashed their corporate party, right? But he was super cool about it. Like I was super impressed. And we're at this table, and this guy's asking so I was going to sit with Perkins, and instead Phil's getting just talked up, right? And so I went in. I'm like, all right, Perk, I'm going to go over and sit by Phil, and we're going to sort this out and just sort of manage the table, whatever. And after that, now Phil and I are pals,
That's
right?
Great.
So it was cool. The next day we go in, and we're hanging out in the locker room. I'm just chewing gum. So there's the greatest thing about Major League Baseball locker rooms is when you're 11.
And by the way, I have to correct you. There are clubhouses.
Sorry, clubhouses. When you're 11, you imagine that down there's a shitload of gum.
Yep.
Like there's so much gum. Like you can imagine buckets full of like different flavor double bubble.
And there are.
Like that's true.
Yeah.
There's buckets full of sunflower seeds. There's fridges of Gatorade. There's
ice cream
all
bars.
kinds of shit down there.
Absolutely.
It's exactly what you think it is. And
It could turn
awesome.
any 11-year-old into a diabetic in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It's the greatest.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there and we kind of just we're hanging out, and it's like toward the end of spring training. So whatever, they're just gonna go for BP. And Perk's like, "What are you doing? You wanna work out with us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess, yeah." So he turned to Gardy. He's like, "Gardy, you care if my buddy Tom works out?" Gardy'd be like, "No, it'll be funny. He'll think we traded for somebody." So I go in the clubhouse, I talk to Clubby, and he gets me geared up with like Twins shirt, shorts, and these socks. But all I had was Vans, because all I wear is like Paul Smith or Vans. Like I don't have a lot of in between shoes. I don't have a lot of middle clothes. I can see these shoe boxer shirts or suits, and so all I have is Vans. And I'm looking around, I'm like, I don't have any shoes. And Anthony Swarzak had a signed pair of shoes. Like, give him your shoes. So I got a free pair of shoes,
That's
Anthony
awesome.
Swarzak shoes. So we go out, and first Tom Kelly does the address. So before you go out, he's telling a story about the minor leagues, and I'm like, fucking wow! Like this is not real life. Like I'm not. This is weird, but be cool, right? Because you got to be cool. do not let on how fucking awesome this moment. Like this
Which is exactly right. That's the way you need to be around star. I mean, that's something you learn as a sports writer early on. Don't act like they're Superman. Just treat them like normal human beings.
Yeah, and that's totally it. But it's one of those things like when you're a kid, Tom Kelly in a World Series, right? Like, best day of my life was in that Game 6 of the World Series with my dad. It was like literally, getting married, having kids, all that was awesome. But the best day of my life was Game 6 of the World Series.
And what I always say is, anybody can get married. Anybody can have kids. Not everybody can win a World Series.
Not everybody. And not everybody was at Game 6 when they're like 14 years old, which is the greatest ever. So we're getting ready, and so we go out to the field, and we're warming up, and I'm playing catch, in the outfield. And then it comes time to shag. So the Twins are taking BP, and I'm taking this super seriously, right? Like I'm running down all the balls. It's the end of spring training, so that people aren't exactly, trying to catch everything.
No.
I'm trying to catch everything. And Perk's just laughing at me, whatever. I come in, and TK is like, "Oh, MVP out there." Literally running after everything like a dog. Like I was like a golden retriever. And so we come in, and Perk's like, "You want to hit?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I want to hit." And so I got to go on the machine. And so we set up like the...
By the way, time out. Evan, if you want a beer or something, go put it on my tab. That was our advertisement break. Go ahead, Tom.
Grab a beer, no big deal. So, like, do you want to hit? I'm like, of course I want to hit. So Perk's like, okay, let's get the machine. And so I got a bat. I got like Trevor Plou's bat or something. And I come out, and I'm stoked, right? And so Perk's got my phone taking video, and there's these people behind like the cage, like looking at their roster, like, who the hell is that? Like, 'cause I don't have
You should have signed autographs.
I don't have a number. Oh man,
should have
I
signed
could. I
autographs.
already felt like intruding already.
You should have gone back there and signed like Kevin Moss,
Right.
some old twin who didn't make it.
Right. So I'm hitting. I have a great video, and Tony Oliva comes down, and he's like, "Don't move your feet. Don't move your feet." And I'm like, "Oh my god!" And I don't have the heart. Like I'm trying to. Okay, I won't move my feet. So it was an awesome time, and then it ended up in a big ping pong tournament, and Joe Mauer is the greatest ping pong player of any human.
That doesn't surprise me.
6'5", coming down at you. There's this mini ping pong
with
table.
the greatest hand-eye coordination in history.
It was crazy. I think I lost like 21-4 or something. And it was in the power rankings of ping pong clubhouse. Mauer, Perkins, catcher, bullpen catcher, Dahman.
Nate Dahman.
Nate Dahman, who's an awesome
guy. Great guy.
He played quarterback actually in the MIC too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he played quarterback at Hamlin. Awesome guy.
Yeah, he's really cool.
So he's actually a very good ping pong player as well. And then I was somewhere beyond. There's probably a couple other idiot guys in front of me, but man, it was kind of a fun time, right? Because you get to live this 11-year-old thing, and it's only just because you're just hanging out. It was either that or I was going to sit there and eat all the gum.
So you're from Melrose.
Yeah, Northside.
You worked for Target downtown Minneapolis for a while. Now you're living in Toronto.
Yeah.
What has that been like?
I mean, it's a great international cosmopolitan city. Like I live in this neighborhood called the Danforth. It's Greektown.
Which is made famous by the Bare Naked Ladies.
Yeah, Bare Naked Ladies. They actually play hockey in my park. It's like one of those gentrified places where it's half ethnic, half rich folks. But I love it because you walk out your door and you can eat any type of food you want. Like it's its own ecosystem. So you don't go traditionally grocery shopping. It's like if we come home and say, okay, what do you want I want stir fry. All right, I'll go to the Chinese vegetable stand a half a block away and get some vegetables and come back. It's such a different lifestyle than going to Costco, and loading up all your shit and on the weekend and then going to Lifetime Fitness and that's your freaking weekend. Like it's a different thing. It's, there's a really cool concert hall down the street from me. There's these wicked restaurants. So I don't know. I mean, I love Minneapolis. I'll always love Minnesota, but there's something brilliantly convenient about a big cosmopolitan city.
Well, no question. And, I went from living in Lakeville and living the stereotypical suburban life, big house, more house than I needed, big yard, more yard than I wanted to take care of, weekends with the neighbors, coach all my kids in sports. That was my entire social life, was coaching my kids in sports and maybe having one beer before I fell asleep at night, because that takes 12 hours a day, every day.
People do that all the time.
It's amazing.
That's a thing in Minnesota.
God bless, it's amazing. I loved the time with my kids. I hated that everything was so structured and that it took up so much time. Because we could have done a lot of cool things as a family.
Yeah, we don't do any of that shit.
Yeah.
Good
for you.
We don't do any of that shit.
But there were no good restaurants. It was all just kind of, make something crappy at home or go out and eat at a crappy restaurant. Right. You're always busy, just running around game to game, activity, traffic on the way into work, traffic on the way out to work, scheduling your days to avoid the traffic. So now I live downtown Minneapolis, and everything you're saying about Toronto is semi-true for me, because now I live in downtown Minneapolis. I walk to my favorite restaurants, walk to my favorite bars. Very short. I walk to Target Center. I walk to Target Field. I walk to First Avenue. I walk to here. I walk to the local. I walk to Kieran's. I love all that, but Toronto is exponentially great in that way because you have every ethnicity within 2 blocks.
Everything. They actually call it the city of neighborhoods because there's so many. I mean, there's a friggin' Little Portugal. Little Portugal is major. There's a little Guyana. I don't know where the hell Guyana is. I don't know if it's Africa or if it's South America.
Africa.
Could be both. I don't know. We probably have 2 little Guyanas. It's nuts how the food and the culture and the beauty of it. This is the beauty of it. Is in Toronto, there's this celebration of everyone's culture. It's not like we're going to wall ourselves in and this is our neighborhood.
So it's not like America.
It's not like America. It's not. It's not like Chicago, the old classic sort of segregated neighborhoods. It's very different, and I absolutely love it. Like every weekend, there's some place that has a festival. So it's like, okay, let's go celebrate Jamaican culture this weekend. It's going to be awesome.
That's beautiful.
It's things like that I really like about living in a big city. Plus, there's always 1,000 things to do. All the concerts come through Toronto. There's great sports in Toronto. I love living. It's going to be really tough to imagine not living there.
And what's your next move?
I don't know, man. I don't know about coming back here. It's great, but I like California a lot. I love LA, and a lot of people hate LA. I didn't like LA until the last 2 times ago. Once you get LA, it's a lot of fun, but you have to know where to go and you have to have access. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of freeways. It's just freeways. But whereas Toronto's different, where you take the subway everywhere. I drive my car once every 2 weeks,
right? And
that to me is like a novelty. It's like, ooh, I get to go drive my car. Whereas you take the subway everywhere, so it doesn't time for me is very. I know exactly how long it takes me to get to somewhere all the time. It's never a traffic jam, or there's never you end up walking so much more. But yeah, I love living there, man.
So we will get some more sports in a little bit. But tell me about, not to name drop, but let's have some fun here. Tell me about some people you ended up running into. I know you ended up going to L.A. to see Bill Murray, right?
Yeah, so that was a weird thing too. I was in Toronto at a rock show. I forget who the hell it was. Anyway, it was like a favor. I was with Universal Records and a friend of mine, Neil the Wheel, and he. It was like this Canadian band. Like I don't know what the hell. But anyway, for me to go, it's a nice thing for me to go because then the band feels like, oh, look at this, people are noticing. So, and what the hell do I care? They're going to give me a bunch of free beers and I'll get to listen to live music. That's not a bad trade-off. So I went to this thing, and afterwards we ended up at this classic old steakhouse. It's kind of like Murray's, I guess. It's like Barbarians, it's called.
What's it called?
Barbarians.
Okay, go ahead.
It's one of those classic old school, like awesome steakhouses. And we're in there, and there's this character at this table, and he's talking about Jack Nicholson. He's talking about he was in L.A., and he was walking across the street, and all of a sudden a car swerved and came with like an inch of hitting him and stopped. And the guy's, he's like, what the hell? And rolls down the window. It's Jack Nicholson. And Jack's like, hey, I'd like to apologize. And he's like, shit, you almost hit me. And the guy is like, and then Jack Nicholson's like, well, you don't have to be a pussy about it. And then he speeds away. Like, immediately, he was going to be really contrite. And then the guy had to run his mouth a little bit. And Jack Nicholson, so he's telling a story. And I'm like, I fucking love this guy already. Like, this is, like, I get that. Like, I totally understand that scenario. And so he's like, if you ever go out to L.A., why don't you look me up? He works for a record label out there. And so I'm like, sure. So I text him, and I'm like, dude, I'm going to be in Atlanta in a couple weeks. We should go have some fun. You know anybody over at Kimmel or whatever? He's like, actually, yeah, I do know somebody at Kimmel. I'm like, well, I got a bunch of people coming from my work. It'd be cool if we could go. And so he texts me back. He's like, I got great news for you. We got green room passes for Kimmel, and we are going to get turned up. We are going to lose our minds at Kimmel. And I'm like, so I'm at the airport. I'm at LAX. I hate the airport. It's the worst airport in America.
No, it's among the worst.
It's
LAX, Miami.
But no one ever flies into Miami. You always fly into
everybody's smart.
Yeah.
Dumb people fly into Miami. And sometimes if you have to go to Caribbean, you have to go through Miami.
Yeah.
Miami, O'Hare, Atlanta, and LAX are the worst airports in America that I can think of right now.
Yeah, Atlanta is growing on me because it's adding more restaurants. But
It's getting better.
LAX is like the most unfinished piece of shit.
It's terrible.
Like there's sheetrock.
Almost always flying to Orange County.
Yeah, well, you know what? I should do that. It's just sheetrock.
Orange County's really nice.
It's like you have to go through like this. You duck down underneath the plastic, like like when people are building houses. That's LAX all the time, and so you have to.
It looks like a part of the TV series The Shield. You expect one of those guys to pop out and shoot.
Yeah, and shoot at you, like hide behind.
Yeah.
So we're at LAX, and I tell these guys, I'm like, so I got something lined up for tonight. Like, what is it? I'm like, well, we're gonna go. We're staying at the Roosevelt Hotel. It's the only place I stay in LA. It's it's right in Hollywood. And it's got the best pool scene. It's like the greatest shit ever. I love the pool scene there. Plus, they always upgrade you. If you come in wearing a Tupac T-shirt and a half sleeve arm tattoo, they're like, we're going to put you in the patio by the pool. That's like a general play. You make it the Roosevelt. So I'm like, hey, guys, we're going to go to Kimmel tonight. Like, what do you mean? They're like, we have tickets to the show. I'm like, well, it's a little bit better. So we get there, and we're behind, like going in the green room, and there's all the free Red Stripe, like they have Red Stripe and they have food
Why
and all
Red Stripe?
shit. I don't know, but what the hell?
Jamaican beer.
It's weird that they had Red Stripe, but that's what they had for beer. So we're walking in, and we see Gavin Rossdale because Bush is playing there that night, and so my buddy gives him Nux. I'm like, what the hell? Why'd you do that? Like, why the hell did you do that? You have a chance to see Gavin Rossdale, and you give him Nux? Like, what the fuck? Why would you do that? What you should have done was say, Gavin Rossdale from Bush, do you remember when I was in high school at the time? Do you know how many scenarios in which Glycerine was playing and I made things happen? Like, we're talking 8th, 9th, 10th grade. You are the soundtrack of the beginning of some of the raddest shit that happened in high school. And he didn't say that. He gives them Nux instead. But yeah, we go back and we, I don't know, we have a bunch of red stripes and hang out. Ice Cube ends up there, which,
of course.
It's awesome. But it was super fun. Then they play a concert afterwards. So you leave the green room. But again, for all the free red stripe you want. Actually, I got a tangent about that. So this is something, I don't know, I'm feeling tangential right now.
Go.
So we're sitting there talking in a group and drinking. I'm drinking as much red stripe as I possibly can. I always view things like that like weddings. Like, I don't know when it's going to run out. And it might run out.
So the thought bubble above your head is hurry.
Yeah. I'm just going to turn up as fast as I possibly. Because I don't know. This is not a loaves and fishes situation. Like, I know there's a finite amount of red stripe there. They can't just like fly in red. So I
don't know how many people would link free red stripe with loaves and fishes, but you just did it.
Well, I'm Catholic.
That's pretty good.
I'm Catholic. So they come in and
and I was raised Catholic. We Catholics, we tend to link everything with alcohol.
Yeah,
that's how you get through being Catholic. You drink a lot.
That's part of it.
We drink it at church.
Yeah,
that's how you do it.
That's the best.
You drink and then you feel guilty. That is the essence of being Catholic.
That's why we are, actually. So we're sitting around and talking, and I'm drinking as much red stripe as I possibly can. And this guy walks up. She's got a headset on, and it's most clearly somebody who works at Kimmel. Okay? And he walks up to me and says, "Are you John Sharkman?" And I'm like, yeah, kind of. And he has a red stripe, which I've already had like 100. He has a red stripe, and he's like, "This is from Chris from the Westin." So the Westin's like social media guy is a guy who follows me on Twitter, right? And so he's been trying to one-up the Kimpton Hotel's social media people. And he's like, because Kimpton, when I go to Kimpton's, I only say I love Kimpton's. I fucking love. They're the greatest hotel. I just love them. Every time I go there, they have like all the things I like. They have Haribo gummy bears. They have barbecue pop chips, and they have a beers for me. Like, and they have like a little note or whatever. Hey Tom, thanks for coming again.
And goldfish.
And I have a fish there, and then I can name it George. I don't like to be by myself, and so
you should name it Shark.
When I'm there, I'll get a Shark.
Yeah.
And so I tweet about this, or I'll Instagram it. And the Westin guy starts seeing these, like, come on, man, give us a chance. Like, why the hell did you always do with Kimpton? And so it's become this thing.
Well, you know, I'm going to plug this. I'm getting ticked at Marriott about a couple things, so you need to hook me up.
I will.
Okay.
It's become this like thing between Kimpton and Westin. So I'm like, okay, fine. So I was going to Detroit one time, and I'm like, hey, I sent him a message. It just literally on Twitter. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be in Detroit tonight. I'm staying at the Westin downtown in Detroit because it's like the only safe place you can stay without getting murdered.
Yeah, I stay in the Ren Center, and it takes me like an hour to find my way out.
Yeah, right. It's wildly terrifying.
It's like 1949, and there's a serial killer.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, the Westin's right by the two hot dog shops. It's right by Lafayette and American, so I like that. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be there tonight. He's like, dude, you give me 6 hours? Like Kimpton has days, and you give me 6 hours? So we get to the Westin in Detroit, and penthouse suite and beers and shit up there, like snacks, all this stuff. And I'm like, man, that's pretty sweet. Thank you very much. And so, of course, I'll tweet about it on Instagram and talk about it. And so Kimpton's like, respect. So it's like this kind of like back and forth between the social media people, between Kimpton, this woman, Whitney, who's great, and this guy, Chris from Westin. And so, but the ultimate one-up is the guy from Westin saw that I was at Kimmel on Twitter and called his buddy who is a producer on the Kimmel show and says, you got to stop getting ready for the show, get a red stripe, and go bring it up to him. So that's exactly what happened. And I was like, that is great. Like, you win.
That's beautiful.
Like, you win social media is when you can track somebody down. Like isn't that a crazy story? And the people with me are like, what the fuck just happened? Like, what is that? I'm like, I don't know.
But it only would happen to you. I mean, you were not an invention. You actually do all this stuff. I mean, it's like, Stacy's texting me now about you being the most interesting man in the world. That's not hyperbole. You do stuff. I mean, because it's not a 4-hour show, let's give a synopsis of the places you've traveled for fun in the last 5-10 years.
Oh, man. I went
Vietnam, right?
Vietnam, Cambodia.
And you're not staying at the Westin in Vietnam.
No, in fact, opposite. So when I travel, I like to stay in like $8 like hotels because I feel like if you stay in Intercontinental in Ho Chi Minh, you're doing it wrong. Like, because then why the hell you can be in any Asian city? Like, we're in Cambodia. We ended up in Phnom Penh, Cambodia one time, and because we got off I fell asleep on the goddamn
I've
bus.
been considering honeymooning there, by the way.
In Phnom Penh?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you, I love Penang. I wasn't even supposed to be there. We're going to Angkor Wat. Got off the bus because I got confused. Didn't know what the hell. Can't read anything. And all of a sudden, there's no bus until the next day. I'm pissed. We ended up at a bar. Ended up staying in Phnom Penh for 3 days. Make this tuk-tuk driver. Like, I had a great damn time. In Phnom Penh. I like to travel like that. Going to Australia, New Zealand in a few weeks. Went to Estonia on a mystery trip. Did I tell you about the mystery trip concept? This is wicked.
I have a song flashing in my head because my brain is very random. Estonia, it's the da-da-da that's on the Adriatic. It's like an old movie, and they bring up Estonia in some kind of a song.
It's
anyway,
like
never mind. Go
it's
ahead.
the you know what the number one export of Estonia is?
Much there.
Number one export of Estonia? Supermodels. There are women that eat at McDonald's that are super hot in Estonia. They actually eat food at McDonald's, and they're super hot. That doesn't happen. That thing happens in commercials, barely. So, like, I have to tell you this mystery strip story because this is, like, classic.
Let's hear it.
So, there's this Blake Elliott. So, you know Blake. So, he played at St. John's, won a Glory Trophy, played for the Vikings for a spell, got hurt. And Blake Elliott and this guy, Josh Durlam, who is, like, one of my best friends. He's an awesome – once flew me to China because he wanted me to eat at this noodle place. Like, which is a whole other weird story. We ended up eating this noodle place, and then we ended up going to the Philippines, and because there was whale sharks down there, and so we like that's a whole other damn podcast, the whole Philippines. But anyway, so it really there's a full podcast on just how
we'll book that
weird the Philippines are. So we're sitting at Liquor Lyle's. So it's one of my favorite places in Minneapolis. I love it because
they still have
it's
live
real.
Music?
I haven't seen it.
Because, my band is going to need a place to play in January, and that would be the perfect kind of place to break in.
It's rad. I love the place. I love everything about it. Although last night I went there and they almost didn't let me in because I had an Ontario license.
Really?
Which is not a fake license. It's actually a province.
Liquor Lyle's is getting picky about who drinks there? Yeah, this is not the world that I want to live in.
It was unusual. So we're sitting at Lyle's and having a few beers, some laughs, and I had some time this summer where Danica was going to be gone. My kids are in Minneapolis at Grandpa and Grandma camp. So I was like a free-range chicken for 3 weeks in Toronto. That's not a good thing for anybody. Like, I could die in that scenario. So I have 3 weeks, and I'm like, okay, I need to have something planned. Like, I can't be with myself for 3 weeks. I go ape shit. I will go bananas. Like, it's not going to, you'll be found dead. If you're there I can't be by myself for 3 weeks. So we're sitting there, and I'm like, let's go on a trip. Let's just, us three, call it St. John's guys, let's just go on a trip. All of us we do okay, right? So it's like, let's go somewhere. And I really want to go to Colombia. I really want to go to Medellin. I really want to go. And my friend Blake wanted to go to, where the hell did he want to go? Somewhere in Europe. Durlam wanted to go to Reykjavik. And so we're arguing about where we wanted to go. The party scene in Reykjavik's off the charts.
Really?
So we're arguing, like, where are we going to go? And so we're like, let's do this. Let's play paper, rock, scissors. And the loser has to plan the trip. And the other two guys don't find out where we were going until we get to the airport that day. So we play paper, rock, scissors. Blake loses. And so we don't know where the hell we're going. Like, we have no idea where we're going. Could be anywhere. I show up at the airport. I packed. It's August, so I packed some shit. I don't know. It's like, I'm thinking, in August, everywhere in the world's decent weather, right? There's not a place that's... You would hope, right? So I'm packing. I'm thinking, God, is Blake going to pick a pizza, or is he going to do... Is he going to do Colombia? I don't know. Like, I have no... But I know we have 5 days, so he's not going to pick somewhere like, frigging Dubai. Or, like, he's not going to pick some place where it's going to take 2 days to get there. And so I'm thinking, okay, Europe, South America, probably. I doubt I'll go to Korea. I go to the airport, and I try to use my passport and that damn thing, and it never works because I'm American, live in Canada, and they can't fucking understand that. So I go up to the counter, and I'm like, hey, can you run my passport, get my boarding pass? And she's like, where are you going today? I'm like, oh, I don't really know. And she's like, well, you have to know where you're going to go there. And I'm like, yeah, I get that, but can you just run the passport, please? Just run it. And so she runs it, and she's like, yeah, you're booked for Helsinki, Finland. And I'm like, well, that's a weird place to go, Blake. What the hell is going on? So the lady is
everyone there looks like Mikko Koivu.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's not. I would never pick to go to Helsinki, Finland. So I tell the lady, because she's now confused. She's baffled at what the hell's happening. So I told her the story, and she's like, I love this story. She's like, here's a pass to the KLM lounge. They have all the free Heineken you want up there. Food. Go up there and enjoy yourself. Thank you for flying KLM. That is awesome. And I'm like, cool. So I go up to the KLM lounge and I'm like hammering Heineken. Again, same theory, right? Like, I don't know when it's going to run out. So having beers, and I get a text from Blake, and because now I know where it is. And I'm like, Blake, Helsinki? And he just like smiley face. So, okay, cool. I get on the plane. I'm by myself. I'm meeting these two cats over in Amsterdam because that's where it connects through. So I get to Schiphol, which is one of the greatest airports in the world.
What is Schiphol?
Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam.
Okay.
No,
I'm sorry. I haven't been out into Amsterdam except to a hotel, but I've been in that airport.
It's the greatest.
Amazing.
I would live in Schiphol.
It's like the nicest mall ever invented.
Yeah, it is.
It's what the Mall of America should be.
If they had an apartment in Schiphol, I might live there. Yeah. Like, it's a brilliant airport. Anyway, I have I think a lot about airports. It's weird. Anyway, so we're at Schiphol, and I'm getting ready to board Helsinki. I still don't see these cats. I'm like, what the hell are they? So they walk up. First of all, Blake's walking with no bags, and I'm like, Blake, where's your shit? And he's like, I didn't bring anything. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't bring anything? He's like, I just figured I'll get it when there. And I'm like, you didn't check a bag? He's like, no. I'm like, you don't have a backpack. He had his phone, he had his wallet, and he had his phone charger. That's it for 5 days. So I'm like, okay, classic Blake. So we get on the plane to go to Helsinki, and Blake's like, all right, well, boys, there's a twist. I'm like, what? What's the twist? We're going to Helsinki. He's like, here's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to crush Helsinki. Like, we're going to kill it. I heard it's a great party town. I think we're going to have a great time. And then tomorrow, we're going to take a ship through the Baltic to Estonia. And I hear it's just off the charts. After that, we'll figure it out. Maybe we'll go to Riga, whatever. And I'm like, Estonia? That sounds rad. So we end up going to Finland, to Helsinki. We met a bunch of people, stayed out till 7:30 in the morning. And, just crushed it. It was super fun. Got on the ship. And it's a party ship, right? So you're already, having a good time by the time you get there. Went out till like 9:30 in the morning the next day. And then we had like, what the hell should we go now? We have another day. Should we go to St. Petersburg, Russia? Should we go? It's bad time. Should we go to Riga? No, let's stay in Estonia. And so we stayed in Estonia I highly recommend Tallinn.
Really?
It is a great place to go. Super fun, super cool people, beautiful people. But yeah, I like to go to places like Tallinn, Estonia versus, like Cancun or whatever.
Well, you win. I also know that you've been hanging out with Craig Finn lately, the leader of Hold Steady.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's a great dude. We've become pretty good friends, and it's my favorite band. Like, the Hold Steady, right?
Yep.
Like,
I saw him at First Avenue last time they were here.
Yeah, it's
and I think Craig Finn blew me off. I think I tried to get him on the radio to help him sell some tickets, and I think his attitude was like, we don't need to sell any tickets.
Yeah, well, Minneapolis, it's hard coming back to your hometown even. Yeah. I even know that. Like, when I come back here, I don't tell anybody I'm coming. I told like a couple people, and then just say, you know what, I'm going to be at Nye's on Tuesday night. If you want to come. If not, whatever. Because otherwise it becomes so difficult to do it. But yeah, I love the Hold Steady, and kind of gotten to be friends with, again, on Twitter. Sort of whatever, just kind of on Twitter. And last time he came to Toronto, we hung out, went to the Pho House, this pho place I go to all the time.
I love that stuff, by the way. If anybody doesn't know, pho, it's PHO. It's the Vietnamese noodle soup.
Yeah.
It's like the healthiest and best thing you can eat, and it's cheap. And it's my sister, who lives in D.C., took me for the first time. I was like, where's this been all my life?
Dude.
Because, I have a history of like sinus problems and head, ear, nose, throat problems. It was like the best medicine in the world.
It's the greatest.
It's amazing.
It's actually the best relationship I have with a woman is this woman at Pho House. She's this old Vietnamese lady, and I walk in there, and she sees me, and she smiles. She's got she's missing a couple teeth, and she smiles and waves, and I just wave back at her, and within like a minute, she'll bring me a bowl of rare beef pho. Oh. We never talk. We don't exchange anything but a smile, a wave, and she brings me this most delicious rare beef pho. It's fan. We actually went to Vietnam based on an Anthony Bourdain episode. There was an Anthony Bourdain. I did too. Like, he's the raddest guy ever.
Yeah.
It was based on an episode he did in Vietnam. That's the reason I went there. I went there to find the pho place he went. Like, that was the reason I traveled across the world, was to go to the place that Anthony Bourdain went, and it was fucking great. We found it. It was like this weird, like, you sat on like a 5-gallon bucket type of place, right? Where I'm like the biggest person in the country. Like I'm like Shrek walking like I'm walking through alleys and I'm ducking. It's massive. It's massive. But yeah, pho is the greatest. But anyway, so Craig, we had pho, and they just played 4 nights at Toronto at this rock club called the Horseshoe Tavern, which is like, it's like if First Ave and Liquor Lounge had a baby. It's like the Horseshoe.
Perfect.
It's like this brilliant place. And they played 4 nights in a row, and it was fantastic. Like, they played albums, which is the coolest way to listen to a show, right? So they played Almost Kill Me, then they played Separation Sunday, which is my favorite, and then they played Boys and Girls, and the last night they played all kinds of different things. But it was a hell of a time, man, and, hanging out and having a good time. It was good. It was good.
Awesome.
I didn't sleep much this week, but again, it's not worth being that old.
Well, it's funny because I was a little like you when I was young. I stayed out late. I got up early. I worked hard. I loved going to bars. I loved going to restaurants. I loved going out to the music scene. And I hit a certain age, I just couldn't do it anymore. I just need my sleep. I need kind of a little more of a controlled life. How long do you think you can do this?
I don't know. I'm 37 right now, but I don't feel 37. I think it's all how old you feel, right? I mean, maybe someday I'll wake up and say I just need to turn down and go to bed.
Yeah.
I just don't foresee that happening. I'm terrified that I'm going to miss something because I know that there's always something awesome right around the corner. Because it's how it happens. Like, these random things happen where this is how you meet this person, and pretty soon you're at Kimmel, right? Like, you hear a Jack Nicholson story, and the next minute you're having all the red stripes you can possibly. Like, you have to be aware and open. What I think is a lot of times people like routine. They like to say, okay, I'm gonna go to work. I'm gonna go to the health club. I'm gonna eat, a piece of chicken, 2 vegetables. This is what I'm gonna do. Like, they have a routine, and that's comforting for a lot of folks. That's fucking terrifying to me. Like, when I get in a routine is when I start to freak out. And so I don't know. I can't ever foresee myself like doing the same shit every day.
It's interesting because my body now, I'm 51 years old. 51 and a half. My body craves routine. My brain craves randomness.
So who wins?
It depends on the day.
Yeah.
It depends on the day, and it depends on Stacy's schedule and whether I'm trying to be on her schedule or whether I'm just off doing my own thing. And, and as a writer, it's the same thing. It's the same dichotomy. To be a good employee, to produce timely pieces, you need structure and discipline, and to ever write anything that isn't just run-of-the-mill horse shit, you need some randomness and some creativity.
That's it.
So it's always I have that battle in my personal life. I have that battle in my professional life. I have that battle in whatever creative life I want to have. It's like rock and roll. It's like playing in a band. We now have a band that's almost ready to play out. And to get to the point where you can play out, you got to have people who are on time and who show up for practice, and you got to have all 4 people there, and you got to work on songs diligently. It's a job. And you got to work really hard so that if you ever get the chance to go play live, then you can say, screw it, we're going to do it this way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like you're always battling between discipline and randomness.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I always err towards randomness because you can always find your way back to discipline.
Yeah.
But once you get into such a routine, it's very difficult to get back out of it. It's like, remember in grocery stores, they had that big freaking yellow circle thing where you put a quarter in it?
Yeah.
And it would go around in a damn circle. I think about that all the time because it's such a, metaphor for life. Like, you're going around in concentric circles and they're getting fucking smaller all the time. And at some point, it just goes down, right? You have to really enjoy those top couple circles because there's no way to have it go up again. I think about those. They don't have those anymore at grocery stores, do they?
No. I don't know why either, because it's a great.
I used to love
It's a great scam. Every kid who walks through there wants to lose $3.
It's true. You know what? They don't offer any. It's not like.
No, they don't offer anything.
It's not a gumball.
The entertainment of losing your money. You know what it is? It's an honest casino.
Those things are genius. Yeah, that always wins. The house wins.
House always wins. They just aren't giving the bullshit of pretending you're going to win.
I want one of those. Can you buy those? They're probably on eBay, right? I don't know what the hell. What are those called? What the hell are those called? What is that? That's a crazy phenomenon. When I was a kid, there's nothing that made me happier than going to the Red Owl with a freaking quarter or a nickel or whatever the hell and watching that sucker go around and around. Why is that entertaining? I guess I grew up in Stearns County, and maybe that was entertaining. I don't know.
We've been talking about all these big names. I'm interested. You live in Toronto. You're a sports guy. You ever run across Dwayne Casey, the Raptors coach?
One time I talked to him actually at I was at this fair. It's this thing called Mayfair, and it's in Rosedale neighborhood, which is like, I don't know how to describe it. It'd be like if it's like a Dinah, except the homes are worth $30 million instead of $4 million.
So pull out a Dinah.
Yeah, like it's like, but they're all worth $20 to $30 million, right? These things are fucking rad, and they have this fair every May, and it's this like thing for the kids, whatever. It's a bunch of folks that tie sweaters and stuff. So we went to it, and he was there, and just hanging out. And so I went up to him and said hello. I'm like, hey, I'm from Minnesota. Would have loved to have you longer. Like that was like the greatest injustices. What was he, 22 and 22 when he was fired or something like that?
In any other franchise, that would be the great mistake. You let Dwayne Casey go when he was 500, and then you were terrible for 5 years or 8 years or 10 years after. The Wolves, it's not even their top 20 mistakes, but it's a terrible mistake. And he's a great coach, and he's a great guy.
Great dude. They love him in Toronto. They absolutely love him in Toronto. And, in fact, why Toronto's good is because he's gotten DeMar DeRozan to buy in.
Yep.
He's gotten Kyle Lowry, who was a malcontent before then, to buy in. Like, that's
awesome.
As team as any team in the NBA. So, yeah, I talked to him one time briefly just for a little while, but they love him in Toronto.
They should. He's one of my favorite people in sports. He's the best. We got about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
I'm going to hit you with some questions that I usually hit my guests with at the end, just going to offer some different
One time, but it didn't mean anything.
It's pretty... Well, you answered
Shit.
You answered all 4 questions. I got to come up with different questions now.
I don't know.
All right. It doesn't sound to me like you spend a lot of time watching TV or movies, but give me a favorite TV show or movie.
Oh, my favorite movie is The Big Lebowski.
That's awesome.
I've seen it. I watched The Big Lebowski 66 consecutive days once when I was living in Vienna. I was living in Vienna, Austria. And
Why were you living in Vienna?
I played football over there.
I forgot about it. That next podcast, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I played in Europe. That was a weird experience.
Have you read the author who...
John Grisham, The Pizza.
Did you like it?
No, I don't, because I don't really read books anymore. After I read Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs by Chuck Klosterman, that was like the fucking mic drop. Like, I don't need to read books after that. Like, he just did everything there. So I didn't read it, but it was like that,
it's
right?
Pretty good.
So I'm living in Vienna, and it was during the Kylie Minogue era where Can't Get You Out of My Head. It was literally on Euro MTV every 35 seconds. Like, they would wait 35 seconds for a commercial and play it again. And I got so incensed with this. I'm like, we're just going to watch Big Lebowski on loop. So we watched it 66 consecutive days to the point where you know everything. So I love that movie.
God, I love that movie.
That's my favorite of all time.
All right, give me like a favorite song, favorite album. Something pops in your head.
Well, I love Separation Sun by the Hold Steady or Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses. Like, my formative years were the Gunners. I actually just spent when I was in LA, I went to the Sunset Strip. And I was up at the Rainbow. The Rainbow is this famous club in L.A., and we ended up going up to the Lair where the Lost Weekend was with John Lennon. And you're not supposed to go up there. I fucking went up there anyway. It's like Alice Cooper was up there, and they hold themselves up in this thing. But that was like Guns N' Roses' era was along that strip, right?
Yeah.
The Whiskey and the Roxy. So I went into a bar, and I played the entire Appetite for Destruction cover to cover. And this bars now are great because you can do the jukebox where you can make sure it's the next song played. So you can jump in. So if somebody plays shit music, like if somebody's hammering on John Denver, you can come in and just like overtake them if you pay more.
That's awesome.
It's brilliant capitalism. So I played the entire cover to cover Appetite. I love the Appetite.
And by the way, I grew up in a house. I'm old. So back then, nightly entertainment. There were like 3 channels. And I ain't gonna sit there and watch Walter Cronkite all night. So my dad would commandeer the damn record player and put John Denver albums and play them for hours.
Oh my God!
And I think that's why I didn't really become anything of a musician until I turned like 38 or something like that. Because I didn't want to sound like John Denver.
I can't do that.
It took me forever to recover from that experience.
Yeah.
Best moment of your life, and no sappy shit allowed.
Game 6 of the 1991 World Series. My dad and I walked. My birthday was October 19th. I think that was October 22nd, I think. And we were outside the Metrodome, and we're staying at the embassy. I remember everything about it. And my dad was scalping tickets. Now, my parents were school teachers, right? They're very humble folks. They didn't, they weren't exactly executives that they can throw on dough. So it was a big deal to I think we scalped these 2 tickets, and we were in the upper deck, center field, and I think it was $100. And that was like
a
fucking $1 million to me. Like, I'm like, oh my God, Dad, we can't do that. We're going to lose the house. Yeah. We're going to lose the house. And we went to it, and it was when Kirby had the catch and then the homer. It was like the most magical moment, and I talk about it was the best day of my entire life because you're with your dad, you can't believe it's actually happening, and then for the Twins to come back, that was the best day.
That's awesome. That's just great stuff. That's Tom Linnemann. I'm Jim Souhan. This is SOUHAN-UNFILTERED.com. You can find this and all the other podcasts at that website if you haven't already. We have like a business meeting now because I'm just getting into this podcast thing. And I'm doing like 3 a week with various people, and then now Michael Russo, our hockey writer, and I are doing.
He's
one.
So good. He's super
great.
good.
He's great, and he's a great guy, and great music. He's like, kind of like you too, where all of a sudden he's like touring with the Counting Crows. Seriously, he's a lot like you. Yeah. All of a sudden he's touring with the Counting Crows, and Adam Dirks is like considering doing a book with him. It just and you go to the city, he knows this guy and he knows that guy. He knows the Hard Rock Cafe owner, and he's one of those. He's like you. He just every time he turns around the corner, he sees somebody he knows. But I love talking about all this stuff. Next time we talk, we will get into more football and more mainstream stuff. We'll talk Bridgewater, we'll talk Manziel, and all that stuff. But I love the tangents. I love talking about life and rock and roll and partying and all that other stuff. And in a way, Stacey and I live vicariously through you because we
really.
Well, she's a school teacher. She works incredibly long.
The most noble job there is.
She gets up at like 5:15 in the morning.
Yep.
And so she goes to bed at like 9 at night most nights. So even weekends, she's still kind of locked to that schedule. We don't exactly go out and party.
Yeah.
We go to dinner, we have a beer, and then we're kind of shot. So getting to hear your stories kind of is our social life.
Well, that's good. It's fun because when you ask questions, I remember them. like it's funny because I don't really have like a couple. Like I don't know. It's just sort of be open to the universe, man, and just walk around and. Hey, have a good time. Think good things happen. But I don't even remember them. Like, if you would say, well, give me a couple stories, like, I'd be like, I don't know.
Right.
But you'd have to just say something specific, and it might jog something. But you just got to be open.
You're kind of reminding me, too, when I was a baseball writer in the 90s, I go to New York on a Sunday night and get in late, coming from Detroit or something like that. The Twins have a 3-game series, like Monday, Wednesday, Thursday series. And I'm at the bar at Carmine's. And
Carmine's.
I love their red clams. They're just awesome. So I'm sitting there eating that, and there's like a skinny little black guy, really well dressed, and a big fat white guy sitting down the end of the bar. And they kind of engage me in a conversation. And at first I'm being my typical asshole self and going, And finally, I think they're pretty interesting. We end up talking. They end up saying, well, he's the stage manager, and I'm the manager. The well-dressed black guy is saying, I'm a manager at the so-and-so theater right down the street. And it was... music of my life. What's that? The Phantom of the Opera was playing its long run down the street. And the guy goes, well, why don't you come down, when are you free? And I said, I think Tuesday night I might be free. Why don't you come down Tuesday night, just like come up at 10 minutes before showtime, give him my name, and I'll take care of you, right? So I grab a buddy of mine who works for the Twins. We go there 15 minutes early. We're standing there. It's like 5 minutes early, and I give my name, nothing's happening. I'm about to turn and walk away, thinking they were just right. And by the way, this guy, I said, listen, I'll find out. I'll buy you some Twins tickets or something. He said, no, I don't want anything from you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We show up. So like 2 minutes before the show, this guy comes out, personally grabs me and my buddy, walks us to the back standing room only aisle. I'm thinking, great, free show, standing room only. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
He waited until everybody was seated. Then he took us down front row center, sat us there for free. We watched the show. We get up to leave, and he sends an assistant out. They take us on a backstage tour of the Phantom of the Opera set. Those sets, these like 100 feet wide, 50 feet deep sets, 50 feet high sets, just elaborate, amazing stuff, fold up to about as skinny as my thigh and slide into a ceiling. Because the backstage in Broadway, it's like billion-dollar real estate. They fold everything. And the stars' quarters is smaller than an end table. It is the room for a stool and a mirror and nothing else. It's amazing back there. It's like, but I mean, and
you got to be open to it.
That
though.
happened only because I was willing to have a conversation.
Because you're open to the universe. You
Absolutely.
have to. That's where all the fun is, man. You can plan all the fun in the world, but it's what you don't plan that's the most fun.
Absolutely. That's Tom Linnemann. I'm Jim Souhan. This is SOUHAN-UNFILTERED.com. Wednesday night, December 17th at 5 o'clock, I'll be at The Local with Roy Smalley. I'll also have an appearance in a podcast Christmas week at Kieran's. We're still setting up the time and the guest. We'll get back to you on that. Follow me on Twitter at SouhanStrib if you want information on the podcast, or follow Alive and Social on Twitter. Follow Tom Linnemann at John Sharkman on Twitter, and you'll be highly entertained. Tom, I appreciate it, man.
Cheers, man.
Thanks, Evan.
More than one soul could ever bear. So sad.